Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. As I carried my tray to the table at lunch the next day, Donna and Lynn approached me again. Hi Crystal. Have you made up your mind yet? Lynn asked. I don't know, Lynn. The football season is almost half over. True, but basketball starts in a few months. By then you'll be an experienced cheerleader. Well, I'd like to join, but I have another problem. Like we said yesterday, there are no problems that are insurmountable. Well, this one might be. You see, my older sister, Carol, tried out for the squad 2 years ago and didn't make the cut. We do everything together and I couldn't join without her. She'd be heartbroken that I made it when she didn't. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lynn look at Donna and then both nodded. Donna said, I remember Carol's tryout. That was the same spring that Lynn and I tried out. She did great. I heard that she was the last one cut when they had to get down to the right size, and that they hated to do it because she was so good. I know that we can find a place for both of you on this year's squad. So you see, no problem. I put on a big smile. Gee, that's great. We'll both be on the squad. Well, that was the only thing that was holding me back. Lynn smiled and said, Great. We're so happy to have you on the squad. We have a meeting on Friday after the last period in room m2f. Can you and Carol both make it? We'll be there. Donna said, Fantastic. We're so happy to welcome you to the squad. Don't forget. Room A37 Friday. Okay. I won't forget. See you later. They both said goodbye and hurried away. No doubt they couldn't wait to tell the other squad members of their coup. I found my friends Barbara, Jenny, and Diane and sat down. Barbara said, I saw the airborne twins talking to you. Any problems? No. They're just pressing really hard for me to join the squad. You're probably the only one in this school who can refuse them and get away with it. Your popularity as a TV star and actress would do that. I would still be affected if they choose to turn vindictive. I didn't say that you wouldn't be affected. But you could weather the storm. I won't have to. I've decided to let them make me a member of the squad. Barbara blinked twice and looked at me for a few seconds. I guess that I had gotten the impression that you didn't want to be on the squad. But joining is the smart choice. It's the only choice. But I don't want to think about that right now. Did you do your homework for shorthand class? After school, I worked on my class assignments immediately. I wanted to get them out of the way before the TV show started. As before, Carol had invited Heather and Sherry over to watch with us. Aunt Jessica wouldn't be there, but she could watch at home since it was a national broadcast through affiliates all over the country. This time Debbie had come over to watch with us. At 8:30 we were all gathered in front of the television set. The opening credits background didn't show me at all, just Oliver coming home alone to an empty house. I sank a little lower into the cushions on the couch. Oliver wandered around the house holding his head like he had an incredible headache. His eyes were bloodshot and he looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. The camera followed him to the bedroom and watched as he collapsed on the bed. I noticed that there wasn't even a picture of me on the nightstand. As the show's opening broke for commercials, I tried to sink even lower into the couch. They weren't even going to show my picture in the opening background. Well, so much for that job. Then I started to think about all of the people who had tuned in to watch the show because they thought that I was going to be in it. Carol looked at me and said, "What happened? Aren't they going to show you at all? Who wants to see Oliver after he's lost you? I wanted to see you flying off into the sunset." I said sheepishly, "I don't know. I guess that they decided to cut me out completely. It's like that sometimes. I'm sorry everybody for disappointing you all." Mom said, "Now Crystal, the show's only beginning tonight. Maybe they'll show you in a dream sequence later on or something. And the most important thing is that you get paid even if they don't use the footage." I was ready to turn the show off at that point, and I probably would have if I had been alone, but I also wanted to see if they talked about me at all. After the commercials, the show came back on. The camera was watching Oliver sleeping soundly on the bed. There was a banging that seemed to intensify in volume. Oliver finally woke up and groggily stumbled to the door. As he opened it, the banging stopped and several guys barged in. One of them said, "Oliver, what's going on? You're going to be late." Oliver said, "What time is it?" "It's 9 o'clock. You were supposed to call me at 8. Oliver's eyes opened wide. 9? Oh my God. Then there was a flurry of activity as Oliver shaved and showered in what took 10 seconds of TV time. His friends practically carried him out the door, dressing him as they went. There was a mad drive through a city and they stopped in front of a church. Running up the steps, they flung the doors open and all ran into the church. Carol said out loud, "What is this, the funeral?" Mom said, "Shush." The camera watched from the altar area as Oliver hurried down the aisle past dozens of people sitting in pews, apologizing for being late as he passed them. As soon as he was in his place, the organist began, "Here comes the bride." The camera zoomed over Oliver's and the priest's shoulders as the bride entered from the rear of the church and slowly marched down the aisle. Although a veil covered her features completely, I certainly knew that it wasn't me, even though she was wearing my wedding dress, since I had never been filmed in a church. Oliver and his new bride joined up at the altar and turned towards the priest so that the ceremony could commence. As the priest made the final pronouncements, Oliver lifted the veil and kissed his bride. The camera was moving around behind him at that moment, so her face was not visible. Then Oliver's face was pressed against hers as the camera completed its arc and you couldn't make out her features. You could only tell that she had blonde hair like mine. I was dying to know who had replaced me. The scene changed to outside the church again and you could see the happy couple hurrying through a shower of rice with their heads down. They climbed into an enormous white limousine and drove off into the traffic. At no point had the bride's face been visible. Then the show broke for commercials. Carol said, "Cries, you never told me that they shot your wedding in a church." "They didn't. That wasn't me. I guess that they reshot the first episode with somebody else. They used the same bridal gown though." "Well, I guess that we won't be going to California." "Sorry, Carol." "Oh, there will be other jobs. We'll get there eventually." "I wonder why they didn't use you though." Mom said, "I'm going to call Mr. Daniels tomorrow and ask him if he knows." As we talked, the show had started again. Sherry, who was taking a sip of soda, suddenly coughed and sputtered soda from her nose. "Look." We turned towards the screen in time to see Oliver carrying me, still dressed in my wedding gown, into a hotel room. I deduced immediately that they had used somebody else to add a preliminary scene to what we had shot. After that, we saw practically every scene that I had been in. Many of them were tight close-ups of Oliver and I kissing. The paragliding scenes were very well done and it appeared that we were really the ones doing it. They had cut in some actual footage and it blended wonderfully. At the end of the show, there was a sunset shot of Oliver, standing on the cliffs north of San Diego where we had done the shooting, looking sadly out to sea. More than 2/3 of the show had been my scenes with Oliver. I was in shock after having felt that all of my scenes had been edited out because they hadn't used my name in the opening credits at all. As the station went to commercials, one of which was from Barrett's, my family and friends applauded, and then congratulated me. I was breathing a sigh of relief that I wouldn't have to explain to my other friends why I wasn't in the show at all. Mom said, "Well, I guess that I won't have to call Mr. Daniels after all." And the show was wonderful, honey. You did a terrific job. When I saw that they didn't use my name in the opening credits, I thought for sure that I had been cut out. As it is, I can't believe how many scenes of me that they did use. Debbie said, "They probably didn't include your name because you're an unknown and because you aren't going to be a regular on the show." We spent the next hour picking apart the show and discussing where the storyline might go now. We all agreed that they couldn't use the opening background that they had used for the first show. I was hoping that they would have to use something with me in it to maintain continuity for at least the first few episodes. Since it was a school night, Mom put a halt to our discussion at 10 o'clock and Sherry, Heather, and Debbie all left for home. I never got a chance to say goodbye to Debbie like I wanted to because we didn't have any privacy. I again wished that she attended the same high school that I did, so that we could have more time together, but for the time being we would have to settle for telephone caressing. At school the next day, I was the main topic again. Almost every girl told me how jealous they were of me getting to kiss that dreamy Oliver, and every guy that I passed seemed to be staring at me even more than usual. There were a number of whistles and remarks after I passed different guys, but I ignored all of them. One group even whistled, "Here comes the bride." The day passed very quickly and the talk had started to die down by the time that we left for home. With the excitement of the premiere episode of Oliver on board, I had forgotten to tell Carol about the cheerleading meeting. As soon as we were home, I broke the news. "We're both on the squad?" "Yes. I told you that I would tell them both or none. I didn't actually think that they'd go along." "Well, they did. And now we're committed. We have a squad meeting tomorrow in room A37 after classes are over." I didn't actually think that they'd go along. I smiled. "You're repeating yourself." She giggled. "I don't know what else to say. Just tell me that you'll be there. I don't want to do this alone." "Okay. I'll be there." After my last class the next day, Carol met me in the hall and we walked together to the room where the meeting was to be held. Most of the cheerleaders were there when we arrived and we were introduced to everybody. Carol was already acquainted with all of the girls even though they traveled in different social circles. As a supposed newcomer to this school, I feigned ignorance of most of their names. With introductions complete and everyone there, Donna called the meeting to order and started off by welcoming us as the newest members of the squad. Everybody applauded wildly and Lynn banged the gravel to restore order after about a minute of welcomes and small talk. Then we had a little presentation ceremony where Carol and I were given our cheerleading outfits. The meeting returned to regular business after that as Donna announced the remaining schedule of games and practices. Then the meeting went informal as everyone crowded around to pummel me with questions about my acting jobs. We broke up when the janitor came to clean the room. Carol and I walked to the office where Mom was just getting ready to leave. Mom was very surprised to see us carrying cheerleading outfits. "What's this?" Carol said, "We were inducted into the cheerleading squad." "When did this all come about?" "Only since Wednesday." They wanted cries, and she told them that they had to take both of us, so I agreed to go along. You make it sound like a chore. I remember that you desperately wanted to join 2 years ago. Well, I've gotten over it since then. I'm just doing this for cries. Mom just smiled and said, "Uh-huh." That evening we modeled the cheerleading outfits for Mom. With Carol's help, I removed my corset, since I would need complete freedom of movement for cheerleading activities. My gaff gave me the correct look beneath my short skirt for those movements that would cause the tiny skirt to expose the matching panties that were part of the outfit. No alterations would be necessary since the top was a sweater, and the skirt and panties had elasticized waistbands. The next day, Carol and I practiced a little in the backyard. There was a game today, but we wouldn't be attending. The squad had agreed that it would be better if we waited until they had a chance to work with us. We didn't want to look like complete fools at our first game, and we didn't want to embarrass the others. We didn't wear the outfits for our practice because we didn't want to get them dirty. Instead, we wore loose shorts and sweaters. Carol showed me the routines that she had been taught for her tryouts, and we tried to do some other things such as cartwheels. I was absolutely terrible at first, which was not surprising considering my general lack of athletic talent, but with Carol's coaching I slowly began to improve. Like everything else that I did, if I was going to do it, then I wanted to do it right. I paid very close attention to the way that Carol moved and I copied her moves exactly. Boys and girls move very differently, having developed their movements and mannerisms at a very early age. I needed to jump and behave just like Carol and the other cheerleaders, so that I would fit in. After several months of living as a female, I knew that the normal movements that I had copied from the women around me had become second nature to me. As far as I knew, no one except my family and an inner circle of friends from the theater even suspected that I had not been born a female. With any luck, I would be able to master these moves, and pass as a cheerleader now, as well. On Sunday I was a little sore from all of the practicing that we had done on Saturday. At breakfast I read through the entertainment section of the paper and happened across the syndicated review of the new shows. I scanned the listing until I found Oliver on board, and read the review aloud so that Mother and Carol could hear. Oliver on Board is an interesting new addition to the Wednesday night lineup. The series opener was a charming story about the marriage of the series star and his subsequent honeymoon in Mexico. Oliver Adams gave an excellent performance of a young man in love, and Crystal Ramsey, a newcomer to the small screen, gave a delightful performance as his adoring teenaged bride. Their honeymoon ends abruptly when an accident sends the bride unwillingly sailing off into the sunset. I shall look forward to seeing how the series copes with the loss of Oliver's bride and his readjustment to life. If it is handled with the same sensitivity and aplomb as the first episode, then the network should enjoy a decent market share with this series. Mom said, "That's a wonderful review. And they even mentioned your name."
Yeah.
Cries, "That's even better than having your name in the opening credits of the first episode." They flash by without even being recognized or remembered by most people unless you're a big name already. This way, everyone reading the reviews has a chance to see your name and remember it if they saw the show. I really only want the people who do the hiring to remember it. I hope that I can get some more work out of this. We still have a long way to go with our college fund. I have a feeling that things are about to break soon, if this review is any indication, Mom said. During the afternoon Carol and I again practiced in the backyard in spite of being a little sore from yesterday. I started to feel a little more comfortable with the movements as we continued to work out. On Monday, Mom left her job early and Carol and I rode with her instead of going home on the bus. Instead of going straight home, Mom stopped at the hospital. She said that we had to pick something up. Carol and I followed her in, where she stopped at the information counter. Could you direct me to the records office, please? She said to the woman at the counter. After getting directions, she led us to the elevator, and we descended to the basement. Turning right as we exited, we followed the hallway until we came to a door marked Records Department. Trying the door, Mom found it to be unlocked, and, upon walking in, we found ourselves in a large room which was divided in half by a service counter. A woman stood behind the counter sorting cards on the counter's surface, and we walked over and waited until she looked up. Mom said to her, "Good afternoon, I'd like to get a replacement birth certificate for my daughter." Date of birth? Mom told her, and then she turned to the computer terminal and began tapping on its keys. Name? Ramsey. Crystal Ramsey. The woman stopped what she was doing and looked first at Carol and then me, for the first time. "Oh, my gosh. It's you. I'm so thrilled to have you here in my office. Could I impose upon you for your autograph?" I said, "Of course. Do you have something that I could sign?" The woman handed me a sheet of hospital stationery. "What's your name?" "Norma Jankowski." I wrote, "To my good friend Norma, love, Crystal Ramsey." When I handed it to her, she began to thank me profusely and to tell me how much she had enjoyed the televised play and the TV episode that I had been in. We spent about 15 minutes talking about my acting, and I answered a number of questions for her. Finally she said, "I'm sorry to keep you so long. What was it that you wanted again?" Mom said, "I wanted a replacement birth certificate for Crystal." "Oh, yes, that's right." Looking back at her computer screen, she said, "I don't have a listing for a Crystal Ramsey on that date. Only a Carrie Ramsey." Mom said, "You must have a listing. Please check again." That was the date that I gave birth to Crystal. "No, I'm sorry. The only Ramsey baby is Carrie." "What is the mother's name?" "Let's see. Parents are William and Susan." "That's my husband and myself." "But you have Crystal's name spelled wrong." The woman looked at me and then at Mom. "It's possible. We had a big push to get our records entered into the computer about 10 years ago, and they hired a lot of temporary help for the data entry. Some of them were very sloppy. Well, there you go. Some attempt messed up the records. Do you know what happened to the original Mrs. Ramsey?" "No, my husband and I split up when the girls were infants. I'm afraid that many of my documents were lost back then. I need a birth certificate for Crystal now that she's working, and I haven't been able to locate hers." "What is your other daughter's name and date of birth?" Mom told her, and she began tapping on the computer keys again. "Yes, here's Carol's. That one seems to be correct. Let me print a copy for you." She tapped a few keys and the laser printer spit out a birth certificate. Taking it from the tray, she stuck one end of it into a small machine and pressed a large green button on its console. I heard an audible click and then she removed it. It now had an official seal embossed in the paper. Mom said, "Norma, what can we do about Crystals?" Well, the normal routine is to petition the hospital administrator to investigate and clear up the matter. They have to dig into the archives and find the original documents and then authorize me to make the corrections. How long does that take? The last one took about 12 weeks. Oh dear, 12 weeks. If we have to wait that long, then I'm afraid that Crystal will lose that big part that she's up for in Hollywood. They requested a copy of her birth certificate be forwarded immediately. A big part? Yes, there's a possible role with Leonardo coming up that Crystal is being considered for. The studio needs the birth certificate because some of the scenes will be filmed in Mexico and they will have to obtain work visas for the cast and crew. Leonardo? Leonardo DiCaprio? Yes. Oh, how wonderful. I simply love him. Crystal, you are such a lucky girl. I would give my pension to work with him in a movie. Without a birth certificate, I'm afraid that Crystal won't be able to be considered for the part. Well, it can't be helped, I suppose. Norma looked very nervously about. We can't have Crystal losing such a wonderful part because of some foolish error by a sloppy temp. After all, she's not some illegal alien, she's one of our most prominent citizens. Let's see, I would just have to move the A, and add an S, a T, and an L. It's not like I'm changing anyone's date of birth, and I would only wind up doing it anyway after the administrator verified the information. Norma was typing as she talked. Oh boy, look at this, they also checked male instead of a female. There, all done. Norma tapped a couple of more keys and the laser printer came to life again. Taking the printed certificate, she placed it into the embossing machine and pressed the large green button. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.